Hey, I'm Garrison Doctor with Rep Your Water Apparel. Today I'm down at the AvidMax headquarters in Denver. Wanted to show you guys a little bit of our brand that they have in stock here at AvidMax. All kinds of awesome hats, true enamel camp mugs. Throw these right on a campfire if you want to. T-shirts, lightweight, soft, awesome unique graphics, of course. And even some great performance wear on the water gear like our merino blend sun hoodies, fantastic base layers, and also good in hot weather. Make sure to check that out. And today I'm going to be tying some flies. I'm a signature tyer for Umpqua Feather Merchants, also based here in Colorado. So we're going to spin up some bugs. Very excited to be showing you guys my new Flexy Stone. This is brand new, and you know, it's hard to do anything new, really truly new and innovative in fly tying these days, and this I think is new and different and something the fish haven't seen, so I'm really stoked on it. The construction of this fly we'll obviously get into more detail, but it's flexi tubing over top of 2 beads in the abdomen. That gives it this great kind of segmentation. You can see through this tubing to those beads, right? Gives a little bit of a hot spot as well. This material also allows the fly to sink really well because it is obviously permeable. The water flows through it and it has a little bit of density. So it allows for a really great sink rate. It has this translucent quality, and we get this fantastic wing case profile. It's available in 2 colors, anywhere Umpqua flies are sold. This is the brown, which we're going to be tying today, but it's also available in a black, so check that out as well, especially in more off-color water. This brown can be a great golden stone imitation as well, so keep that in mind. Okay, so this fly has a little bit of ins and outs to tie. First thing is the hook. This is going to be tied on a U106. First thing we want to do is just debarb this hook. This is a hook that does come barbed. So I want to debarb this, both for getting the beads on and for the fish. So you can see this hook is kind of a classic stonefly hook with the pre-bent shank. And that is going to facilitate with the down eye this hook, or excuse me, this fly riding hook up in the water, right? Because that natural bend is going to want to carry the fly down. So before we do anything with beads, we are going to put our antennas on. So we want to just barely start our thread in the front, trim off the tag. I'm using a tan brown thread. Any kind of brownish thread will do that you like. Something that you can put a little bit of pressure on, because with this tubing, you do need to put a little bit of pressure. Okay, so we're gonna tie in some barred Flexi Floss, Sexi Floss, and I'm just gonna take one piece, loop it around, tie it on both sides, and then we can cut it, position it a little bit to make our antennas. We want them to kind of flare off either side roughly, but you don't need to get too crazy about it. The fish won't care, and this material moves around a ton in the water anyway. So then I'm going to bring my thread back, trim this a little, and just do a quick whip finish on this. This is going to be under a bead, so we don't need to worry about glue or anything. It's going to be protected. Okay, so now we're going to load our beads, and this takes 3 beads. We're using Umpqua Radiant brass beads for this. I do not recommend tungsten because we are using 3 beads. So the 3 brass beads I have found to be a really great weight for this fly. If you go to tungsten, it's too heavy. Even with 1 tungsten out of the 3, unless you really need to get down through some heavy current or you're tight lining it or something, it becomes pretty obnoxiously heavy pretty quick. So we're going to use 2 radiant brown beads, and then one radiant orange. And that radiant orange is gonna be our hot spot. So you can see here I have the one brown, that's gonna be the head of the fly, okay? And then we're gonna load the radiant orange next, okay? And behind it, one more radiant brown. And these two beads are gonna be in the abdomen. I think that's the correct term, of the fly, okay? So you can see all three of them loaded there. Okay, so now I'm gonna adjust this because we're gonna be working on this tail end section. So I want this kind of shank sitting pretty straight in the vise. Gonna tie in our thread towards the back of the fly here, right down into the bend of this hook. Just get a nice little thread base, and we're gonna get our tail. Once again, barred floss, barred brown of some kind. I like the pieces that are relatively straight if I can find them, but that's a me thing. Okay, so we're once again gonna tie in one side, one shank of the hook, loop the floss around, tie in the other side, and then we can clip those in the middle. Make sure they're sitting. If you want them to flare, you can do a tight wrap on the shank, and that'll kind of flare them out a tiny bit. Trim those down. Kind of the same size as the antenna, I think, is good. We can trim the ends. There's your tail. Okay, antennas, tails, in. Now we get to the fun part. Okay, so this is body tubing. This is in brown. You can see it will flare open if you press it. It's kind of squishy. It's an interesting material to work with. You'll get the hang of it. One thing to keep in mind is you do not want to use your nice pair of scissors on this. It's kind of hard, plasticky, and it will dull your scissors very quickly. So cut yourself off 2 inches or so of this tubing, okay? And then we're gonna feed this on, and the antennas pose a little bit of a problem here. You can sometimes just get them to feed through. You could super glue the tips together. I do that sometimes, and that can kind of help. Otherwise, we can flare the tubing once we get it on here. You can see this, you can kind of flare the tubing and get into those antennas and pull them out of the way, okay? So now we have our tubing on, and you can see it's already starting to come apart at the back. The more you mess with this stuff, the more it starts to unweave and come apart, okay? So try not to fuss with it too much. We just want to come in as soon as we can and get a securing wrap right onto the tips, okay, of this. And this is a fly, because of this material, where you cannot be too proud to use a little bit of glue, especially right here, because we're gonna push these beads back down into the abdomen. So we need to make sure that this tubing is gonna stay really secure and not blow out. And if you hit it with a little bit of Loctite or super glue, whatever your glue of choice is, it's not gonna go anywhere, okay? That's gonna be really bomb-proof now, okay? And then all we're gonna do on this tail section is clean up those thread wraps with just a little bit of dubbing. And I'm gonna use the same blend of dubbing for this whole fly, this pattern. And what I like to do is blend a little bit of like brown hare's ear or brown squirrel with a little bit of ice dub, just to give it a little flash. And so you have those kind of longer fibers from the hare's ear, and then those little pieces of flash from the ice dub. But like an SLF brown is really good. That gives kind of the same effect. Any kind of brownish hairs you're dubbing that you like will do great. Okay, so we're gonna whip finish this. We're done. We can't advance our thread over top of the tubing. Whip finishing over top of the tubing is a little interesting. Just gotta kind of push over it. You can do a hand whip finish. And then once again, I am gonna hit that with just a tiny bit of glue to make sure we don't lose any structural integrity in the back. Okay, just a little bit where we finish that thread. All right, and that is gonna be the abdomen. So now we're gonna work these beads back. You can just pinch them back. You can see that nice hot spot effect from the orange bead on this. Okay, and anybody who's tied in a flexo crab, this is the same material. And if you have tied in a flexo crab, you know you can kind of manipulate this material a little bit. So you can kind of pinch it in and pre-form it to where we're gonna tie in our thread, right? So we wanna come in right in front of those beads, get a tie-in point started. I'm gonna hit that with just a tiny bit of glue, just to be sure. In this area of the fly, it's not as critical. You probably don't need to, but I love a durable fly. And this thing, if tied correctly, is very durable. You can trim out some longer fibers if you want on this little tail piece of dubbing, by the way. It's not where we need a ton of texture, but that's up to you. The fish won't carry their way. Okay, 2 more pieces of floss for our back stonefly legs. We're gonna have legs coming out of everywhere on this thing, as you saw, just like a stonefly does. So 1 piece on either side. You can loop one around if you want. I just grab 2. Make sure those are sitting roughly how you want them, flaring off. Okay, and then just trim the tag ends. Doesn't need to be super tight because we're gonna flare this tubing up over top, so you're not gonna see those cut ends anyway. And then get a little bit more of your dubbing, nice pinch. Now here I wanna keep the dubbing quite a bit looser because I want some of these kind of longer fibers coming back out. So I'm gonna keep this purposely pretty loose, lock it in, and then go ahead and whip finish, okay? So this is our first leg station, done, good to go. I'm gonna wait to trim those legs just because I feel like it's nice to trim the legs all at once and kind of get them uniform how you want them, okay? So I'm gonna leave those long. And now, to make our first wing case, watch your antennas in the front. We're gonna flare this tubing back up over top, okay? And once again, you can kind of come in, pinch, manipulate this a little bit, get a tie-in point started. You can see how that's kind of pinched in. So it's sitting where you want. And this gives a really awesome wing case profile in the water, which is something that, you know, a lot of the chenille wrap rubber leg stoneflies that are out there don't give the fish is a really nice realistic wing case profile. So I got 2 more pieces floss for our next set of legs. This is the exact same process that we just did on the last station. I could have left myself a little more butt ends of this to manipulate these, but get these sitting 1 on either side, just how you want. Perfect. Roughly trim off the ends. Once again, it's gonna be flared up over top so we won't see them. Okay, so now we got our second set of legs. Another nice pinch of dubbing. Keep it super loose so that some of those fibers are coming kind of out from underneath of this tubing, okay? And then flare up your next wing case. And don't go too far back. Make sure you just have enough flared so that you're covering where the leg's tied in, but you're still seeing that dubbing come out, all right? I tell you what though, before we do that, we're gonna get this thread out of here because we got to. So make sure and whip finish one more time. Hit it with a spot of glue. That was a pretty big spot of glue, but what did we say? Durable flies are good. Okay, make sure your antennas are still out of the way. You can see through this tubing. We already kind of pre-formed this a little bit. Okay. Come in and you got to get pretty good pressure here on your thread to clamp this material down behind the bead, okay? Keep those legs sitting where you want them. So you can see we've tied that in nice and tight behind the bead. And now get your wire scissors, or a pair of side cuts works really good for this, and come down from the top to free this tubing. Get your antennas out, and then you just kind of carefully work your way around, clipping all of these little pieces of this conduit as we go. This is a very easy way to clip your thread, which I almost just did, which if you're like me, you find annoying, so be careful. And then you'll have a few straggler pieces like this. You can come in, clean up, just so we can kind of cover it up behind that bead, okay? Don't have to get too crazy. Looks like we got some longer stuff on the bottom, so I am gonna clean that up just a little bit if I can. These scissors have seen a little bit too much of this tubing. Okay, there we go. And now we're gonna hit one more set of legs. So I'm gonna do 2 longer pieces with this floss, one on each side, because we're going to leave these as a full X, one forward, one back. Okay, so tie them in the middle, get them positioned roughly how you want them, so you can see we have a nice X on each side. Okay, and then the only thing left here is a little bit of dubbing to clean up this head, and we're done. I mean, that was easy, right? No problem. Let's grab a little pinch. We're gonna keep this dubbing a little tighter now. Get it going, tighten it up. I like to do a little bit in front of these legs as well. I need a touch more, just to keep them kind of flared out nice and clean up behind that bead, so you can get a nice tight wrap. Just one. Perfect. All right, so we got cleaned up the head, little dubbing head. Now all we have left is a little whip finish. You should have just enough room behind the bead for a nice whip finish. Make sure everything's tight, and true to form, we're gonna give just a little hit of glue, right? Make sure we continue our durability on this fly, and that's gonna be rock solid. So the only thing left here, get our legs trimmed up, and this kind of personal preference, I like to leave them medium long, I would say. I think that movement in the water is really good. I think honestly it fishes really well if you leave them longer than you think. but I'm gonna trim them down a little bit here. And that is the finished Flexy Stone. Doctor's Flexy Stone. If you watch this video and you're like, Garrison, that fly looks cool as hell, but I don't want to tie it, well, you can buy it. Okay, that's the beauty of this. If you do want to tie it, I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, fish it, super durable, great weight on it, play with the colors. I hope you have fun with it. Cheers.